Boredom as friction. Boredom arrives as a blank interval, nothing new, nothing urgent, no obvious next step. In a world arranged to keep attention moving, that interval can feel like a problem, even when it is doing quiet work. Boredom protects agency by imposing a constraint on continuous stimulation, interrupting engagement feedback loops long enough for attention to become a choice again rather than a reflex. Consider a generic attention system. It offers stimuli, measures response, and adjusts the next offer to maximize a proxy such as time, clicks, or repeated return. The incentive is clear. More engagement produces more measurable success for the system, and the system's operators are rewarded for improving that measurement. The user is not required to intend anything. The system only requires responsiveness. A feedback loop forms. Stimulus triggers a small reward. The reward trains expectation. Expectation increases scanning to the next stimulus. Scanning supplies more data. More data improves targeting. Improved targeting increases the probability of response. Over time, the loop tightens. The system behaves as designed. It converts moments of uncertainty into moments of consumption. Boredom is what the loop tries to eliminate because boredom is unmonetized, unmeasured time. It is friction. It is the state where the system cannot easily predict the next action because the prior action has ended, and nothing immediately replaces it. That friction is an explicit constraint on the loop. Without novelty, the reward signal weakens. Without reward, the compulsion to refresh weakens. Without refresh, the system receives less data. Yet the same friction carries a trade-off. Stimulation reduces the cost of initiation. It supplies ready-made prompts, reduces decision effort, and fills idle gaps. Boredom increases the cost of initiation. It forces the question of what matters now, and that question takes energy. The trade-off is between low-friction continuity and high-friction discretion. Low-friction continuity feels efficient, but it also shifts control to whatever can most reliably produce the next impulse. This is why boredom is often reinterpreted as a failure mode of the person, rather than a boundary of the system. If the system's metric is constant engagement, then any pause is treated as defect. But a pause is only a defect relative to that metric. Relative to agency, the pause is a protective feature. It prevents attention from being continuously captured by the nearest stimulus. Boredom is the moment when the proxy is exposed, because the proxy cannot justify itself. It can only ask for more. In such environments, even variety can be another form of control. Endless options do not automatically create freedom. They can intensify the loop by keeping novelty cheap. The second-order effect is that the self learns to avoid unstructured time, not because unstructured time is harmful, but because it is unoptimized. Boredom then becomes a signal that the system's incentives have outpaced the person's purposes. If attention is where responsibility becomes practical, then boredom is one of the few remaining places where responsibility can be reintroduced. Not as effortful productivity and not as moral superiority, but as a reset of the relationship between stimulus and meaning. Meaning requires selection. Selection requires the ability to not select. A system built for stimulation treats non-selection as waste. It pressures attention to stay in motion. Boredom counters that pressure by making the absence of stimulus noticeable. It reveals that much of what feels like preference may be conditioning. A learned intolerance for quiet intervals and a learned dependence on prompts. Agency is not merely the capacity to choose, it is the capacity to experience the space in which choosing is possible. Boredom preserves that space. It clarifies the difference between an intention and an impulse, between what is valued and what is merely available. In that sense, boredom protects the integrity of attention. It keeps attention from being fully reduced to a measurement target. This does not make boredom pleasant, and it does not make stimulation evil. It simply names a structural tension. Incentives that reward capture will tend to erode the very pauses in which humans can remember what they are paying attention for. Consider for a single ordinary moment what boredom is asking you to notice. Examine the last time you reached for stimulation without deciding to, and name what was being avoided. Uncertainty, silence, effort, or the open question of priority. Notice what becomes audible when the prompt disappears, and what values appear when the proxy stops speaking for you. Boredom is not only emptiness, it is a boundary that keeps attention from being permanently outsourced.